Game review. Hello all. Today we are going to be doing something special and we are going to rate and review the recent release of Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is the newest entry in the Borderlands franchise. It is a follow-up to the DLC, Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon Keep. You play as the newbie alongside the Dungeon Master Tina and your two cohorts, Captain Valentine voiced by Andy Samberg and Fred the Robot voiced by Wanda Sykes. You are tasked with getting back the Sword of Souls from the nefarious Dragon Lord. From the onset of this game, it has the classic Borderlands feel. Piles of loot, piles of enemies, and it added a couple new things to make this a very fun addition to the Borderlands universe. The gameplay is very reminiscent of previous titles. Look for better tiered loot after defeating enemies and bosses, equip said loot and get stronger. Rinse repeat, this formula can't be beat. One thing I noticed immediately was the varied forms of enemies. I was fighting dragons, mushroom people, goblins, snake witches, and zombies just to name a few, and they were cleverly dispatched to different areas of the game. So that they not only felt varied, but when you went to one of these places, it felt like you were actually entering the home of these inhabitants. Also, each of the areas feel different as well. Not just a paste and color palette for each area, but an actual wide array of different landscapes. Whether that was climbing extremely tall beanstalks and mushrooms, or traveling through pirate coves looking for more buried treasure. Each new area was not only fun to explore, but take in and discover each new nook and cranny looking for our next 20-sided dice. Then it came time to fight the bosses, and I was pleasantly surprised. In past Borderlands titles, most bosses have been just giant bullet sponges that you just fired at until they fell over. In Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, a lot of the bosses you encounter will have certain things you have to do tactfully in order to defeat them. When recording this, I was fighting the giant skeleton in Tangled Rift, and I had known about the electric current that he sent running across the ground that I had to avoid. What I didn't realize was that there were orbs he was spawning above me during his immune phase that were regenerating his health, that I had to shoot and destroy to prevent this. So each boss has different mechanics and tactics you have to employ to defeat them. I also use the Banshee as an example because at certain points in the fight, she will create two walls of acid that you're stuck directly in the middle of, and you have to jump or duck to avoid her shriek attacks. Seeing bosses now have mechanics that you have to anticipate and counter is an awesome change to what was becoming a dull formula concerning bosses. A couple new things I noticed as well were some of the items in your inventory. Your character, as this is set in medieval style times, is outfitted with some new equipment. You now have rings which give stat boosts, spells which differ in element type and what they do, melee weapons, and necklaces with boosts to improve your characters. Also, like classic D&D, your character has a character sheet with 6 different stats. Depending on your class will depend on where you allocate points, and there is a limit to how many you get, so choose wisely. However, if you mess up, you can just respec at a quick change station. Another new thing this game added was dual classes, in which eventually your character will get to choose a second subclass. The cool thing is that you can change that second subclass at any time via a quick change station. This allows for many different cool and interesting combinations and allows the player to figure out what works best for them. They also added an overworld, which is a giant tabletop that a miniature version of your character traverses through as you progress through the game. At first this was really cool, but after a while I found myself hating the overworld as it became very confusing to figure out where to go at times. After you have eventually beaten the game, you unlock the Chaos Chamber. The Chaos Chamber is essentially the encounter system boosted up. You can do different types of runs to boost your Chaos level, which in turn yields better loot, higher enemies, and a much tougher challenge, with Chaos Chamber 20 being the maximum currently. But as with most Borderlands titles, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands will have to have DLC to keep its player base up. Eventually players will get the gear they want and run out of Chaos Chamber levels to chase, so added content will be paramount to this game's long-term success. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands has been a fun ride and adventure. With some new innovations, new items, and only a handful of minor discrepancies, this game is a great addition to the Borderlands franchise. One thing I definitely did know is that I didn't laugh as much during this title. I looked back at the previous games and realized that a lot of the adventures and a lot of the side quests I would do would give me laughs for hours to come. This game had very few laughs, and that is one thing that definitely hurt its score going forward. But I'm going to go ahead and give this game an 8 out of 10. But alright guys, that's going to do it for me. If you could do me a favor and please like the video and subscribe, and I will see you tomorrow.